Welcome to Business Avenue, your portal for relevant tidbits for your career and business. My name is Edmond Jamna. In an earlier discussion, we spoke about the essence of managing your finances appropriately. What we mentioned, the objective of that process is to achieve a surplus, that is your revenue being more than your cost, to be able to invest, to have channels or cycles of what revenue flowing in. Okay. In that discussion, we mentioned that if the revenue falls short of the cost, we hold the cost constant and we find avenues where we can increase the revenue to be able to arrive at a surplus. Now, in this episode, we are going to speak about the scenario where the revenue has no chances of being increased. So we leave the revenue static. Now we are going to look at ways we can reduce our cost. So a cost or expenses, it's any activity that leads to the outflow of funds or finances. Okay, so the sources can be feeding, that's the food you eat. It can be transportation, where you have to move from your place of abode to your place of work. It can be shelter, accommodation, whether you rent it or you build. It can be utilities, the items that makes living in a building comfortable, light, water, pay TV and stuff like that. It can be data. Okay, when you come to business settings, it can be production and non-production cost. You should list all possible costs or expenses that you stand to incur, be it now or the short term, the medium or the long term. It gives you a clear indication of how much or how wide your expenditure pattern is. The next one is to set a savings target. So once you set a savings target, the net of your revenue and your savings target will be what you are able to expend on what we call the disposable income. Categorize the expenses that you have listed into needs and wants. Now, needs are inevitable. You need the needs to be able to survive. Without the needs, when you take away the needs, there will be a serious deficit in one's life. Example, feeding. You need feeding to live. You need clothing to keep yourself warm. You need shelter to be able to find a place to lay your head and recoup your strength for the next days or week's activity. In this era, even data has become a need because some people use data in their daily endeavors. This video that I'm delivering, it is data that is going to make it possible for me to upload it to be able to get to your viewership. So data becomes a need for me. One thing you should also notice that a need for one person becomes a want for another person. Okay, and having a want is not necessarily a bad thing. It all depends on your earnings. If you have room to accommodate both your needs and wants, there's no problem. Okay, wants, on the other hand, are something that you can do away with. The absence of a want will not have any major effect on one's life. For example, a television set. Even though you need television to be able to entertain yourself, the lack of it is not going to cause your life to deteriorate in any way. A need can be further categorized into needs and wants. If you take feeding, you need food to survive, but the manner in which you eat can be a want. So if you need a hygienically prepared food, so you have a scoop of rice with certain vegetables and maybe a piece of chicken, it is enough to suffice you and give you all the necessary nutrients that you need. If you decide to eat at a high level restaurant, you are getting a need, but in the way it becomes a want. It is not bad if you can cater for it. So let's move into ways that we can reduce our costs to achieve the equation to properly manage our finances. After you have listed all your expenses, you have categorized them into needs and wants. You now know which areas you can cut. You can cut in the needs, you can cut in the wants. The first thing to do is to break down, have a budget for your daily expenses. Know how much it will cost you to live through a day. Then be liquid enough to cater for those expenses. Don't have extra money on you. It saves you from impulse buying. It saves you from being yielding to temptations of buying things that you do not need. The next thing you can do to cut your expenses is to buy in bulk. Okay, so when you buy in bulk and you estimate the unit price, it is cheaper than buying in units. Also, you can resort to taking advantage of discount sales or promotions. That way, you get to buy your needs at a relatively cheaper price. The next thing you can do to reduce your cost is to invest in quality. There's a reason why quality stuffs cost much more than those that are not of a higher quality, because of the stuffs that they are made of. the longevity of the item. Okay, quality items are cheaper in the long run. So if you want to buy an attire or a shirt, and one shirt costs, let's say, $100, and it stands to last for a year, and you choose to buy a shirt which costs $50, okay, that shirt might last for, let's say, a quarter or 4 months. So by the time the year elapses, you would have bought 4 or 3 of those $50 shirts costing $200 or $150. Whereas if you had bought one quality shirt, it would have lasted for a year and would have only spent $100. So invest the quality. If you're buying a vehicle, buy a vehicle in the proper shape. It will save you unnecessary consumption of fuel. It will save you from it breaking down and spending on maintenance and repairs. It will save you being stranded by the roadside and taking away money that you have saved for other purposes. Also, live a healthy lifestyle. Eat right, rest well, exercise. It will prevent you from being bedridden and not being able to take advantage of certain opportunities, because your strength is your greatest asset. Once you fall ill, you have to spend money in recovery. Okay, so that money could have been avoided if you were keeping fit. Also, once you fall ill and you are able to recover, there's no guarantee that you will get back to your old strength. Now, the next point you should take note in the quest of reducing your cost is to fill your tank if you drive. Now, when you fill your tank, it takes a longer time for it to exhaust than if maybe you fill it for a half or 3/4. So research has shown that when there is space in your fuel tank and as the car drives on or there is heat in the atmosphere, evaporation is quicker. So your fuel liquid evaporates in the air and it consumes faster. But when you fill your tank, there's no evaporation or there's no space for evaporation in the tank, and the tendency of it reducing faster is lessened. Okay. Now, if you also drive, make sure your tires are pumped to the right pressure. It allows the vehicle to drive well and you don't consume much fuel. It also does not affect other parts of the vehicle for you to spend more. Also, when you detect a fault, you have to fix it immediately. Don't wait for the problem to deteriorate before you visit the mechanic shop to have it rectified. When it does that, you spend more in fixing a worsened situation than it would have cost you if you had fixed it at its initial stages. Also, by the time you allow it to fester for long, it will affect other parts that wouldn't have been if you had fixed it earlier. Also, you have to avoid liabilities. Liabilities are items that have the tendency of making you lose more money. So as we said earlier, you buy an item, the downsides of the item are more than the benefits you stand to derive. It is a liability. You have to do away with it. Expenses that are bound to happen, you have no control over, but you anticipate them. You should transfer the risk to a third party. For example, you have children that you want to see them through to the highest of education, maybe the university level. So if they are kids now, you should sign on to an educational policy with any insurance company or any business that runs that service to be able to cushion you when the need arises. If we are also thinking about pension, you can sign up to a pension scheme and contribute to that. Last but not the least, you should fortify yourself spiritually against unforeseen or unpredicted circumstances, situations or expenses that you have no control over, that you do not expect. You should guard yourself against it. For example, you can train yourself, exercise the best of ways, you can eat well, but from nowhere you fall ill. Serious sickness that doctors will do whatever they can but cannot pinpoint or place their hand on the causes physically. So you should be able to pray against it. Whilst you are safeguarding your finances physically, you have to pray against certain situations that are going to cause you to spend unnecessarily. I am a Christian, so I believe in the Bible, and it says that he is going to rebuke the devourer for our sake. So there are certain forces that are scheming to have us spend unnecessarily. Whilst you are doing all you can to spend wisely, there are certain situations that when it comes, you must spend, but you have not budgeted for it. You should safeguard yourself from it. Okay. So fellows, this is where we are going to draw down the curtain on this episode's discussion. Kindly click on the red button below to push us further to the knowledge of others. Click on the notification bell not to miss out on any of our postings. Like and share. If you have any queries, don't hesitate to put them in the comment section below. Contact us via the information on the screen. and we'll be quick in addressing them. Catch us again on another episode of Business Avenue. Till then, take care of yourself and stay blessed. Adios.